We've got Alex Baber with us today. And Alex, Cold Case Consultants, where did this first come up for you in the first place?
Well, initially it started in 2007, the concept, before I met my wife. I was contacted by a serial killer that I had exposed that was still active, called my cell phone, tracked down my information. And after speaking with him on the phone, we kind of went off grid. Me and my family did for a few years, just for safety purposes. And then me and my wife connected, and her having a forensic background, cyber forensic, and also a forensic psychology background now. And with my background as a PSO, private security officer, that's what I love to do, protect people and do what's right for the community. We kind of came together and we started looking at these cases, and they just started falling in our laps. And with today's technology, as you know, it's advanced so much in comparison to even a decade ago. And some of these cases are 70, 60, 50 years old. So we're basically taking a case that was never looked at from our perspective and starting from square one. And it's just a whole new enlightenment. I mean, we're able to do the new forensic testing for audio spectrum analysis for any recordings that they have. We have the fingerprint latent matches now with the digital software. They can, like that, instantly match a fingerprint. It's great. And we're applying this new technology to these old cases. And while we're doing this, we're getting these hits, these registered returns. And it's one of those, aha moments when you get, when it comes back, you're like, holy crap, this is just really back. So, and it's been really, really great. And some of these cases are really, really, old and infamous cases that have never been reviewed, So that's how we pretty much got started. And that's our background.
Now, cold cases and true crime, those make excellent bedfellows for a podcast host. So I'm excited to go into to delve into both of those a little bit. What is it specifically about cold cases that reached into your heart and really grabbed a hold of you?
Okay, so growing up in northern Florida, Eileen Worrells, her last victim, she had left his body just within miles of my residence as a child. I think it was in like 3 miles. And when all that came out, I'm like, wow, she was literally in our backyard. And that kind of intrigued me. And when I was younger, I was diagnosed with perceptionism, which is a medical term they no longer use. So I have this ability, it's a neurodiversity is what they label it now. So when I look at, say, a letter from an anonymous letter from a murderer or a serial killer, or if I look at, say, a cipher or a code or anything, even a crossword puzzle, my mind processes and connects things on a different level than the average individual. So I'm able to associate things that other people overlook. And with doing that and having the ability to create the new database that we have for all these letters, we collected letters all the way back to 1944 from unapprehended serial killers or murderers. Anonymously, they have mailed letters to, say, the press, law enforcement, victims' families, and created this database. And we set it up so when we run the linguistics across the board and we look for syntax, context, location, anything that can correlate, it sends back a registered return to us. So when we get that, we're able to look closer at the file to see if there's some kind of validity here. And when we're doing this, I mean, we're opening doors that have never been opened before. And it's a whole new experience. Law enforcement's reached out to us, victims' families have reached out to us. We're making leaps and bounds here, and it's wonderful to help these victims' families.
Now, you talked about technology and how crazy is it to be able to reach into some of those old footage, like you said, 60, 70 years back, and be able to use the new technology to give some answers that folks have been looking that they've given up on before?
It's literally it's insane that this is happening. We've advanced so much just in the last 20, 30 years. It's almost as if the case just happened yesterday, and we're able to use the new advancement in forensics to literally identify, locate, and then even close these cases that have been stagnant, have been cold without anybody really pursuing them. Somebody said one of these cases is 76 years old that we're working on. Wow. And the victims, the original victims' family members, the mother, father, sister, brother, are deceased, but you have the second generation that are still in support, are trying to get answers. And when you pick up the phone, you call them and say, hello, I'm Alex Baber from Cold Case Consultants of America. We've been working this case unknowingly to you, and we found this new evidence. it's that moment when they drop the phone, or and they're like, oh my God, well, thank God, and this is wonderful, this is great, what do you have? And we present the evidence to them, and it changes a person's life. It really, really does. It's a shame that we can't get the answers to the ones that have passed on, because that's something very hard to carry. I could never imagine, to be honest with you, Cameron. It's I speak to a lot of these victims' families and mothers especially, and when there's a child involved, whenever you sit down, and I've said this before, and you have a open heart discussion with them, they give you a piece of themselves, and in return, you give a piece back. There's a connection there. And to hear somebody say, the last time I saw my daughter, she got up and I gave her lunch for the day, and she went to the school bus and someone abducted her, and then they found her remains, or they never found her at all. It's life changing. So it feels really good to be able to do this. It's definitely a life's vision fulfillment.
And when you think of the cold cases, I mean, what is it that gives the families hope? What makes them call you in the first place, I guess, is maybe what spurs the request that you get the most often?
Well, I mean, our attitude, basically, we don't take no for an answer. I've assembled what they're referring to in the media as the super team. I have Kurt Baggett, the #1 forensic document examiner in the nation. I have Detective Patrick Cohen from Atlanta. He's Officer of the Year award winner and award winner. He's got plenty of accommodations, just a ton of them, highly respected. I have Dr. Arpad Voss. He's one of the leading forensic anthropologists in the country. I have a Hall of Fame inductee for reporter, broadcast, and documentarian, and Joe Cochran. And, I assembled this team. They're all handpicked. And what we're doing here is we're just making sure that when we break these older cases down, especially, the expertise of each individual's use is maximized. And, again, with the software that's available, it's kind of a double 1-2 punch here. And it's been again, it's life-changing, not just for us and our company, but for the victims and their families and law enforcement. I've been very open and very grateful.
And when you're covering these cold cases, how hard is it for you not to get down on the state of the world that we live in when you're going through some of these cases?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, personally, it's very hard because, since 1980 alone, statistics have proven, the federal government released them, that there's over 250,000 cold cases that are just strictly homicides, not abductions, disappearances, just homicides. 250,000. 1% of those, Cameron, ever gets solved up to this date. 1%. Do the math. Let it set in. There's a lot of victims' families out there and a lot of pain, a lot of answers that have not been provided. And it's not law enforcement's fault. I'm not saying there aren't situations where the investigative could have been furthered or had been handled differently. But the biggest concern here is that only of the 19,000 plus agencies out there, only 7% have a cold case squad. 7% of 19,000. So they just don't have the manpower. And the biggest problem is they don't have the annual funding. So another thing we're doing, we're kind of doing a call of action here where we're reaching out to the state government, federal government for funding, and not for us, because we do not receive any funds from victims' families or any agencies. We have our own private investors. We have almost $250,000 investors' monies that are helping us do this. Wow. And, we're doing this because they have to allocate these funds so that especially these small agencies, on the local level, townships, city, town, they have to have somebody that has a pair of eyes on these cases. They have to, even if it's just one detective, one investigator, because if not, that's going to be filed away. If it's not in a box somewhere collecting dust, it's going to be put in a hard drive and forgotten. You see, and I can't stand by, and my team in support of me, and allow that to happen any longer. We need to intervene and mediate the situation.
Now, what would you say? I know that you got a lot of those folks that are always worried about the big brother always looking on you. Everybody thinks that everything is covered by a camera. So if that's truly the case, then why are there cold cases?
Well, initially there's always the what if. Meaning that, what if the original investigator or the crime scene investigator did not thoroughly do his job, or was not present at the time they came and they found the initial crime scene. Because there's it's paramedic show and they're trying to revive somebody. I think they can save somebody. You know what I mean? And in doing so, sometimes the evidence is contaminated. And in that case, it's not necessarily the agency's fault because you're trying to save somebody's life. But, there's other things that go on with that too. It's just it's not just one problem. This is a collective, and we need to address each issue independently. And in doing so, we're actually able to pinpoint, especially on a national level now, because we're getting national coverage. We're able to pinpoint this to the public and let them know what they need to do to support this and support us and the victims' families. And they're doing that. The call to action has been, the response has been impressive and moving.
What do you think is the biggest misconception whenever people hear the word cold case? What do you think is the biggest misconception that folks have?
Well, I mean, cold cases, a lot of people think that they're, say, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. That's what cold registers. You think of some of these older cases like Jimmy Hoffa, JFK assassination, stuff like that. But believe it or not, a cold case can be within a year and a half. Once the investigation reaches a standpoint to where there's no new evidence, no new leads, it's literally considered cold. Mm-hmm. And there are individuals out there. Prime example is the Delphi murders. Superintendent Carter, wonderful man. Every time he gets up there and he speaks about these two young ladies that were abducted and murdered, he tears up. His heart's invested. And for the last 4 years, it'll be 5 years, February 15th or 14th this year, he keeps saying, I'm one piece away. I'm just one piece away, which he is. Technically, we're always one piece away, right. But he won't let go, and he won't label it a cold case. And God love him. One of the mothers of one of the daughters reached out to my company wanting us to look into it. And I've been open to that. And I would like to have his support in doing so, because these two young girls, we have, are you familiar with the case? We have audio, mm-hmm. We have video of this perpetrator coming across the railroad for the bridge, telling them, down the hill. There's no reason with today's technology that we cannot identify, track down, and apprehend this individual. And I would love this system in doing so with my team.
And how hard is it for you to make the folks that come to you with the request, to put them at ease and let them know that you really are going to give everything that you can, trying to come up with the answers? I mean, how do you deal with them on a realistic level?
We're always 100% level with them and honest. I've always stated that there's no such thing as the perfect crime. There's always a set of eyes. There's always a fingerprint. There's always, a fiber or a hair. Something's left behind. Nothing's perfect in this world. And all I have to do is locate it. And again, these families, if you tell them that, you want to keep it on the level. You want to be honest with them. They've been to hell and back, and they don't want to be bullshit. They don't want to be jerked around. Just tell them the truth. Give them the facts. Say, look, this is what we can do for you. This is what we can help you with. And if things fall into place and things go well, maybe we can solve your crime and give some ease. They say resolve. There's no resolve. I've spoken to hundreds of victims' families, and there is no resolve, but there are answers. There are answers.
And how hard is it to sometimes grasp that yeah, you may get the answer, but it's not necessarily going to be a healing for you?
It's very difficult, because you want to take the pain away from these people. They didn't deserve what happened. Nobody does. I don't care what anybody says. We live in a cynical society here, and it's in our DNA as men to protect our offspring and our women especially. And most of these cases that we're looking at are dealing with children. The majority of my cases, like 62% of them, involve children. And it's very difficult to go down that dark hole when you're looking at the crime scene photos and the autopsy photos and reading the details in the cases. It's a very dark place. And that family lives in that constantly 24/7. And for me to give them some kind of relief, to give them some kind of, a beam of light, you know what I mean, in a very, very dark state of mind, that's what we attempt to do here. And we always want to be 100% honest with them. If we can't help them for whatever reason, and that does happen, even though every case is solvable in my mind, if the original crime scene investigator didn't do his job, we didn't get everything together, or, pieces aren't in order or missing from the files, we are just, running uphill here. It's a never-ending journey that will just keep going because we'll never be able to identify the perpetrator without that information. So, but I do believe every case is solved. I believe it's out there. It's just identifying, locating it, and bringing it to light.
What was your first aha moment, the one that really gave you the boost?
The very first aha moment was with the Chicago lipstick murder. William Hirons, 45, 46, was convicted for 3 heinous crimes, one involving a 6-year-old girl named Susan Deegan. She was kidnapped from her bedroom. Ransom note was left. She was bisected between her C2, C3 vertebrae and dismembered, head removed, legs removed, arms, 6 years old. And her body parts were placed in sewer basins around her residence in her neighborhood. And this man literally was persecuted by the media. He was found breaking out of a house, a burglary attempt, got an altercation with the law enforcement officers. They roughed him up. 5 days, they literally tortured this guy. They didn't give any food or any water, no legal representation, did not see his family. They did some really harsh stuff to this man. And he still wouldn't confess. I'm not the murderer. Listen, everybody, please. Your children are not safe. The perpetrator is still on the street. I'm not him. And then we find out later the polygraphs he took, he passed. But at that time, they said, oh, it's inconclusive. But then when Dr. Reed released the original polygraph exams, he passed them. So, now looking back, unfortunately, William Hines was incarcerated for 65 years. Innocent man, 65 years, long-serving inmate in Illinois history, right?
Wow.
Got a BA behind bars. Okay. Not one incident report right up in 65 years. But this man kidnapped a 6-year-old out of her bedroom and did all these, heinous acts to her. Come on. What are we doing here, guys? What are we doing? So here's the thing is there's a fingerprint on victim number 2 on our door jamb, Miss Frances Brown. Well, with today's technology, we're able to get that fingerprint and we were able to identify the original perpetrator. And we just announced it earlier this week in Chicago, WGN. And we're about to go globally on the announcement and try to exonerate Mr. Hirons after, 70 years, almost 80 years. But that was my first aha moment. I'm like, oh, this guy, God love him. How could you live in an 8x6 cell for 65 years knowing you're innocent? And other people know you're innocent too. Here's the funny is the public got behind him, a lot of support. And the parole board, one of the members even said in the early 70s, look, we know you're innocent. We can't let you out. And the reason they couldn't is because they were afraid that when there's a child involved in a heinous crime, that the city would retaliate. Even 20, 30 years later, they would retaliate. It's insane that something like this could happen with our judicial system. We need to address this. We need to make sure that we cover all the facts, all the evidence completely, and not allow the media to interfere, not allow to inject opinion and assumption. We need to stick strictly to the physical facts and hard evidence.
Now, as you look at the cold cases, you look at the ones from farther back and look at those as they come closer to today. What do you see the difference in the advances that are made that keep maybe some of the cold cases from becoming cold cases today that would have been maybe in the past?
100%. There's stuff like magnetic fingerprinting instead of your infamous latent print match, which is your dust. Now you have the magnetic pool, which is 100% more accurate, and it's much easier to extract. And then you have, the advances in DNA is off the chart. We just got the Golden State Killer within the last few years because of genealogy. We don't even have to have you. We'll track you down through your family. You think you're safe. You're out there roaming these streets, right? All these crimes you committed. You think you're in the clear. Well, you're not. So, we're going to use this technology, the forensic technology advances, especially. We're going to identify you. We're going to track you. We're going to hunt you down, and we're going to bring you to justice for these families. And it's a wonderful feeling. That's another good thing. These guys out here are still walking the street, and some of them may be listening. That have gotten away with some crimes out there. I just hope your file doesn't cross my desk, because if it is, it's just a matter of time. With my team and the abilities that we have at our fingertips, we have the ability to get on the internet right now and type in someone's name and find out where they went to kindergarten. Literally, we have that ability. So there's just a matter of time. They may be breathing free air right now, but it may be a short time before they find out that they're not.
And how much you mentioned the advances in DNA, and whenever you bring up the advances in DNA, it takes me back to 1994 and 95 when we were watching the O.J. Simpson case where everybody was arguing and battling whether DNA was admissible. How much has the DNA game changed since 94, 95 timeframe?
It's a whole, we're on a whole nother level now. It's not even, it's almost to even mention that conversation is humorous at this point, because back then, anytime you introduce something new, and especially in the forensics, department, it's going to be challenged because it's dealing with somebody's life, whether it be them being incarcerated or being, put on death row. So that's going to be one of the issues. Here's another one of the issues, just to bring that up. If you remember, like the Wayne Williams case and that kid, which I'm working on that case too, and I found new evidence that could exonerate Wayne Williams. This
Wow.
is really one of those other aha moments. At the crime scene, we've identified forensic evidence that they've had, but they didn't realize they had it. It's not their fault. You had the GBI, FBI, and the local law enforcement agents for Rockdale and Atlanta PD. But it's been filed away because that's, we found the guy, he's in prison, blah, blah, blah. So this is one of those cases there where they introduced fiber evidence, which is basically smoke and mirrors. It's been proven now. The whole dog hairs and the fibers. The fibers came from an automobile, not a residence. And the dog hairs were canine hairs from a German Shepherd, which they used to search out these victims. There's pictures everywhere. The German Shepherds with the victim in the presence of the victim's crime scene, and these are the hairs that are used to identify. Come on, guys. So we're on a whole nother level here. And everything is like the Unabomber, Fitzgerald, one of my idols, man. Great individual. Yeah, we've connected on Facebook. He's friends with my wife, with her forensic background. And I'd like to know him personally. Unfortunately, I don't. But he was able to track down Ted because of, linguistics, which is one of the categories that I've really invested in with these letters in this database, these serial killer letters. That's really directed us where we're going. And he put that out, and then of course the brother identified and sister-in-law identified. Hey, I know that writing or that saying or the verbiage in the context, and he was able to track him down. But they were laughed at him. They rejected this man. They said, "Look, the way a person speaks, you can identify a perpetrator." Well, absolutely. Where they're raised, the verbiage that they use, whether it be Chicago or Philly or New York or Florida or California, the way they word, and then knowing the individual, you may not know it, I may not know it, but their friend may know it when they hear it. When you say something backwards or they misspell a word a certain way. This is another one we just discovered. The Circleville letters, Circleville case. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. Are you familiar with the Circleville Rider case?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we got all the evidence on that. And the 83 letters, there was a letter which they used the spelling of truly, Truely. Okay. If you research that, the use of that spelling is zero in American context since 1890, not even 1%.
Wow.
Well, that's now get this. I got a lot I need to share. I got to keep a cap on it. But you look at the Zodiac letter, his return letter from January 29, 1974, right? He went off grid for 34 months. He spells it the same way at the bottom, okay? So then we start looking at the linguistic sides of this and those letters, and we find out that this traces back, everybody's always associated the Black Dahlia with Zodiac, okay? But they never had physical evidence, right? So this database we created put us on this road where we were able to go back and identify new forensic evidence connecting these cases, including the Zodiac, because Ann Short, Elizabeth Short, her cousin, or Elizabeth Short, his cousin Ann Short, was the teacher in Circleville that worked with Clara Massey, Gordon's wife. Let that sink in. Elizabeth Short's cousin, Ann Short, from the Black Dahlia. Okay. In the letters, initial set of letters, it says, "My girlfriend, do not mess with my girlfriend." Okay. So we tracked back and we found out who the individual was that dated Elizabeth Short with the DA files. Okay. This guy was witnessed by 3 witnesses at Mark Hansen's residence. All right. At this residence, when they came in, it was January 10th, or January 11th, of 1947, 4 days before she was abducted, mutilated, and murdered. In the report, they said she came in with this young gentleman, darker hair, complex, a little glib, a little outspoken. And at the bottom of it, it has his name, but they didn't know his first name. but they knew his last name. Well, we found his business card and the 23 items that was mailed in by the Black Value Avenger. He mailed his own card in.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got the forensic evidence from there, and we connected it. Here's a lot of things people didn't know. So the 408 cipher for the Zodiac, right? It quotes, they thought it was the most dangerous game. Okay. Mm-hmm. Original about, hunting man, the most dangerous animal. Okay. Well, it was actually from the movie called A Game of Death, which was filmed in 1945. There was one theater that played that movie in all of 46, 47 in Los Angeles. It was the Marcel Theater. Marcel Theater was owned by Mark Hansen. There's a bit short-lived with Mark Hansen on two separate occasions, October 1st, October 12th, October 23rd to November 13th, right? Mm-hmm. Was his playing in his theater. It's the second feature under Bedlam for a period of like 28 days, okay? In that file I got from the DA, it said, he asked her, did you go to my theater? She said, no, we just went yesterday to see that movie that was quoted. So then we had the connection back with the documentation to the linguistics, back to the cipher, and then we added Circleville with Ann Short, having him come there to Ohio and write all these letters. And then we had Kurt Baggett do the handwriting analysis, number one guy in the nation, and number 1 or 2 in the world. And he came back a match using his expertise. He's been doing this. He's number one by far. He's the only individual to testify in all 50 states or give his opinion. He's testified in over 12 countries. So he is the best of the best. So we've opened this door connecting these cases that no one's ever been able to do with the forensic database, and then using that with the new advancements to get physical evidence that already existed and no one ever realized. We have literally just shot into the stratosphere. It's insane. It's crazy. And this just happened. Just like we just went public with our company just in the last 4 months, almost 5 months.
And how have the request, how have the numbers changed? How have they grown?
Oh my gosh. I mean, just today alone, I think we've gotten 6 phone calls this morning with individuals requesting to look at their case. One, a former police officer that's incarcerated, they believe was set up, wrongfully convicted. Another one was a grandmother calling about one of her sons that was persecuted. She says persecuted, prosecuted, with a case to where he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, law enforcement focused on him. This does happen. Law enforcement can't get narrow-minded. But, my brothers in blues, they're doing what they can with what they have. And it's not like someone's out there with a vendetta or someone's out there that's incompetent. What it is you get focused on one individual because there's so much evidence that may direct you towards him. He looks like the guilty party. And that's happened a million times since the beginning of crime, I assure you. But you have to have that physical, you have to have that absolute, irrefutable piece. DNA is one of those. The new fingerprint, magnetic fingerprint. There's no denying that. With the software, you put it in, it gets the identifiers or identifications. They call them identifiers now. And the ridge, the swirls, depending on what print it is, it's like that. And there it is. You can't deny it. It just hand it to the prosecutor and say, look, here you go. It is what it is. So that it's like we're living in an entirely different world than we lived even 10 years ago. Yeah. So if you're a bad guy, like I said, if you're out there and you think that, I got away with this, again, I hope your file doesn't cross my desk, because if it does, your time is limited, I assure you. Yeah, it's quite possible you may be breathing not so free air here in the near future. So, but it's been great, man. This is a wonderful feeling. We don't charge any victims' families. We do not accept funding from state or federal governments. We're all funded by private investors who have viewed the evidence personally, signed NDA, sat down, viewed the evidence, and said, "Holy crap, this is great." And they've actually funded personal money investing in the company to help these victims. I mean, that's a whole nother level too. I mean, these people don't even know these victims or know these people personally, and they're putting their money up, their hard-earned cash to help us help them. And that's great, man. I mean, there's still hope. There's still hope.
Now, Alex, if folks have any questions, would like more information about what cold case consultants can do for them, what's the best place to find more information?
Okay, so you can go to online, C.C.C.O.A, which stands for Cold Case Consultants of America. So it's CCCOA.us. Open up our website. You get to see introduction to me, the company, my wife. My wife, again, wonderful woman. She was a victim herself. 2004, she was abducted, held for a week, raped, and then dropped on a sidewalk with nothing but a sheet and left for dead. And she recovered. And that fueled her desire. She joined the Air Force, became a military police officer. This was one of the K-9 handlers for Air Force One. And then she transferred from the Air Force to the Army for PsyOps. And she's just a total ass kicker, and that's why I married her, but her bio's in there, Kurt's is in there, Detective Boyens is in there, Joe's, Dr. Voss's, get a little bit of background on us individually, our skill set, where our expertise is, what the company does. And there's a little section at the bottom. If you want to contact us, you have a case yourself that you feel you're kind of stuck, between a rock and a hard spot, or there's not any new leads in law enforcement, is maybe unable to focus on your case, reach out to us. We're here. We're looking to make a dent in this Mount Everest of 250,000 cases, one case at a time. And that's what we're here for. And let us know.
There you go. Well, Alex, it has been great to have the chance to visit with you, sir. You opened some eyes, and hopefully we can catch up again real soon.
I would love to be back, Cameron. I really appreciate it. I want to let you know it's people like you that are making this possible. Reaching out, with the PR, getting us in here, letting the listeners hear what's going on, give them the facts, not opinions, not assumptions. Let them know, the core of all this. It's people like you that are making that available. And I want to thank you. The victims' families, thank you. Do you know how many times I've gotten off these interviews and spoken to the families, and they've said, tell this individual thank you. This really means a lot. So you're part of this too, man. Just to let you know.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that, Alex. Good to visit with you, brother.
It's a pleasure. It's been all mine. Get in touch with us, and we have a couple major releases coming up. Maybe we'll drop one on your podcast.